This video will talk about the first little essay that you're going to write for our class. The text that you're going to look at is called Burke's Unending Conversation Metaphor. There's a little paragraph here. Read along with me. Kenneth Burke writes, "Imagine that you enter a parlor. You come late. When you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in a heated discussion. A discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it's about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while, until you decide that you caught the tenor of the argument, and then you put in your oar. Someone answers. You answer him. Another comes to your defense. Another aligns himself against you to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending on the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion is interminable. The hour grows late, you must depart, and you do depart with the discussion still vigorously in progress." So, we said that this is a metaphor. We know that a metaphor explains an unknown thing in terms of a known thing. We have all had conversations. This one sounds almost like an argument, right? We've all been in rooms, whether it's with family or with friends, where people are talking and agreeing and disagreeing with each other. That's what this sounds like here. But it is a metaphor because what Kenneth Burke wants you to think about is not actually a verbal conversation, but a written one. What he is inviting you to imagine is that, think of all the libraries in the world. In all of those libraries, the books are talking. Everybody who wrote a book that's in a library wrote that book because they had something they wanted to say. If you have something you want to say, can you travel all around the world and tell everybody in the world? No, you can't. But if you write it down, people around the world can read your stuff in the present and in the future. Your great-great-grandchildren who are 50 years from being born will be able to know what you thought about something because you have written down what you think. So, reading and writing can be like a conversation. Let's go back to the metaphor and take apart these bits. Kenneth Burke says that you enter this conversation late. Other people have already begun this discussion. This is because there are already tons of books in the library. Just about everything that human beings have thought about and dealt with, all of these things have been written about in one form or another. If you want to know what people have thought about something before you got there, can you go talk to them? Maybe, maybe not. Most people, you can't. So what do? You go read the books they've written. This is how you listen to what they're saying, because listening is like reading. Reading is like listening. So you get to this conversation, you're listening. After you've listened for a while, you decide you've caught the tenor of the argument. You understand sort of what people are really arguing about after you've listened for a while, after you've done some reading. Then Kenneth Burke says, you put in your oar. What's an oar? It is that wooden stick that people use to move a rowboat forward. So what this really is a metaphor within a metaphor. Putting in your oar means you are going to say something that is going to continue this conversation. You are going to write your essay. You're going to write your book. What does it mean that someone answers, you answer him, another comes to your defense, someone else aligns for you or against you? This is when people write things back and forth. This kind of conversation you've probably seen on Facebook or other social media. Somebody posts something, and then somebody agrees with them, somebody else disagrees with them. It goes back and forth. That's what's happening here. The discussion is interminable means that even when we have left the scene, our descendants are still going to be reading and writing and having these kinds of academic conversations. So when we depart, so long as libraries exist, these conversations will still be going on. This is how I want you to think about academic reading and writing. Well, this is Kenneth Burke's challenge. So, for your essay, I want you to do two things. You are both going to explain, show me that you understand Kenneth Burke's metaphor. How are academic and reading and writing like a conversation? What are the parts of the metaphor? What does this metaphor tell us about academic reading and writing? How does it help us understand those things? That's one thing you need to cover in your essay. The other thing you need to cover in your essay is your own experience with academic reading and writing. Has it ever felt to you like the kind of conversation that Burke is describing? Did you ever read things? Did you ever listen to somebody else, metaphorically, before you started writing? Did you write things that were in response to what somebody else said? That's the personal element. This essay is, in terms of genre, it is a personal genre because you're comparing the academic, the Kenneth Burke metaphor, with the personal, your own experiences with reading and writing in a school setting. Your finished essay should have an introduction, including a strong thesis. You should have several body paragraphs and a clear conclusion. It needs to be 2 to 3 pages. Once you've finished writing it, you're going to post it in the appropriate discussion board and reply to a couple classmates. If you have any questions, make sure to email me.